How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final scene of
What up, everyone? Welcome to Spy Stream, where we go inside a live leftist organizing call. And we watch what they say when they think people like us aren't listening. And we are doing a rare public spy stream today because it turns out the National Education Association has been having these giant, almost weekly calls organizing people to protest on the far left. And they don't really seem to care if I stream these things publicly. Normally, spy streams are supporter-only events because, wouldn't you know it, when leftist groups find out that I'm streaming their stuff on the internet and recording them and showing people what they're actually saying, they tend not to appreciate it. And when they find out, sometimes they find out in the middle of the presentation, they just cancel the whole thing, or they kick us out, or something else goes wrong, or I get in trouble, or I get a copyright strike, or any of these other things that happen. So normally I do spy streams as a supporter exclusive. That way we can hide out in a corner and we can just watch them and record them and then release clips later if we feel like it. But on rare occasion, and that occasion might be coming more frequent if the NEA keeps this stuff up, I do make the spy streams public for everyone because I think there is a very low probability of there being negative backlash or ramification from it. And as it turns out, the NEA has kind of indicated that they don't actually care if all of this is public. And so if the National Education Association wants to allow me to stream all their organizing calls on my channel to show people what the biggest teachers union in the country talks about and supports when it thinks people like us isn't listening, I'll do it. I have no problem with that. And so tonight, guys, starting in about 7 minutes, we're going to be going inside a live organizing call for the National Education Association. Now, this organizing call is a little unexpected because apparently in this call, they're trying to figure out how do we get people on the right to support us in our fight against Donald Trump. It's called Public Education Should Be Bipartisan, a virtual town hall for GOP public education allies. Now more than ever, all voices are needed to advocate on behalf of public schools, educators, and students. Join us for a conversation about what is going on in Washington and how it affects working families, students, and rural communities back home. Hear from NEA President Becky Pringle, NEA's Republican caucus co-chairs. The NEA has a Republican caucus. Should everyone in the NEA Republican caucus be summarily excommunicated from the Republican Party? I kind of feel like they should be. There should be no Republican caucuses within the National Education Association that are working hand in hand with Becky Pringle. That should not be happening. The GOP should be identifying those people and kicking them out. I'm not even joking about that. As we reimagine ways to take collective action, if there are any fucking Republicans talking about collective action on this call, I will have words to fight for our students and the future of public education together. So they're going to be talking about what they're doing to appeal to Republicans. And I think that this could be a very informative experience for us about what the National Education Association and all their Republican friends are doing to try to defy the Trump administration. So that is what we're going to be watching, guys. It starts in about 4 minutes. Let me just get the Zoom up. Join event. I hope everyone is having a good night tonight. Hasn't opened yet, so we have to wait for it to open. In the meantime, guys, if you feel like supporting the work I'm doing and getting invited to supporter-only spy streams, because most of my spy streams are supporter-only, the very best way to do that is by heading over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. Signing up for $8 a month, $80 a year, you will get invited to all of my supporter-exclusive spy streams. Another thing you can do is become a member on my YouTube channel. YouTube channel members get invited to all my supporter-only spy streams. You can also support my work on Locals, Patreon, become a Twitter subscriber. All of those people get invitations to spy streams. We do them when the opportunity allows. We've been doing a lot of spy streams lately because there's been a lot of leftist organizing calls lately. So sometimes we don't do a spy stream for a while. Sometimes we do several of them a week. It really just depends on the time of year. It depends on what's going on. I do try to do as many of them as I can because it's always interesting to see inside these calls. And so support my work over on the Substack and you will get invited to the live show every single time. And of course, I really appreciate it. We're just waiting for their webinar to get started, guys. I hope you guys are all having a good day. I cannot believe it's Wednesday already. Like, what is going on? It is almost halfway through the year. Can we just talk about that for a second? It is almost halfway through the effing year. What the fuck? It is crazy. Time is a crazy, crazy thing. That is not actually real, but we'll talk about that another day. Oh, man. I know, Suzanne. I know. Shut up. Shut the front door. I know. We're just waiting for the spy stream to begin. Shout out to Tamed Rebel over on Rumble. I see you over there, dude. Good to see you. As a reminder, guys, I do public streams Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. We are doing Counter-Revolutionary Book Club tomorrow. If you want to join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. to read some of the most dystopian things the left has written, head over to the channel at 5 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to be reading Queering Anarchism again, and it's going to be great. You can sign up for the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club over on the Substack. Just click on the book club link in the menu. It's right up here. Book Club. You can find the book club reading list by going to this post right here. It has all the documents we're reading. We're reading Queering Anarchism tomorrow. It's a giant book of essays. We're still working on this one. Hopefully more people can join us. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify and all that stuff and catch back episodes of the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. You can find the archive over on the Substack too, of course. Hey, Jane. I was right. I know. I'm right about everything. Perpetually. All the time. So come join us tomorrow at 5 p.m., guys, for Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, and we're going to have a good old time. We haven't done it in a couple weeks. We need to get back in the habit of it, and we are going to do that. In the meantime, we're just waiting for this webinar to start. We're waiting, National Education Association. We're waiting. I guess they do still have 1 more minute. They're almost always late, though. Guys, as a reminder, we don't know what they're going to say. We don't know what they're going to do. Maybe it's going to be a really boring hour presentation. Maybe we'll see some of the craziest stuff we've ever seen before. We just don't know. This is what happens when we do it live. So sit back, grab a snack, grab a soda or something stronger, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Donnie's representing over on Twitter, X, whatever. Good to see you, Donnie. I know, Red May's already half over. He does have another thing going on tomorrow, though, I think. We'll have to look into it. Might have to do a Red May stream tomorrow. Webinar should be getting started any second, guys. You spilled your whole soda on the floor? Well, that sounds like a you problem, bot. That's not an us problem. That's a you problem. That's a bad way to start off a spy stream. Not very spy-like. Not very incognito. We're still waiting for the webinar to start, guys. Hopefully they let us in. Obviously, I'm not signed up on my real name under the webinar, so they don't know who I am. Sorry, NEA. But there are usually thousands of people on these calls. Thousands of people. Literally. Thousands of leftist activists. Make sure you've mounted the like button for me, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're just waiting to be let into our Zoom call. And we're waiting. We're waiting. We're waiting. We are...
or in any form for any purpose. Audio, video recording, copying of slides, and the use of AI note-taking tools are prohibited without written consent from NEA.
Oh, no!
Violation of these terms may result in legal action.
Oh, no!
I'm going to review that one more time for everyone as people are joining the webinar.
I'll take my chances, NEA.
This presentation and its contents are confidential and may not be further distributed or passed on to any other person or published or reproduced in whole or in part by any medium or in any form for any purpose.
Okay.
Audio and video recording,
we'll just end the
copying
stream
of slides,
now.
and the use of AI note-taking tools are prohibited without the written consent
the
of
Karlyn
NEA.
disclaimer is in
Violation
effect.
of these terms may result in legal action.
Yeah, okay, NEA,
And with that,
try
NEA
it.
President Becky Pringle.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know that you have a lot on your plate, but you joined us because of your dedication to our students, the people who have dedicated their lives to teaching and nurturing and driving and feeding and counseling those students, and to this country. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you joining us, and also how much you have done throughout your careers. And those who are joining us who are not in education, you are joining us because you understand that public education is the foundation of this or any democracy. And so I want to just begin by expressing that gratitude. As you know, those of you who are leaders within our association, you know that we begin every convening by honoring our Native people. And for that tonight, to do our land acknowledgement, we have David Kinsella from the great state of Virginia. David.
We begin by acknowledging that we meet on traditional lands served by Nacotchtank and Piscataway and Pamunkey people. We honor America's first people and all elders, past, present, and emerging. And we are called on to learn and share what we learn about tribal history, culture, and contributions that have been hidden from view in the story of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Those of you who are joining us know what I know, that across every zip code, in every classroom, on every campus, every community, that NEA members share one goal. We want to ensure that every student, everyone, has the access and opportunity and support and resources they need to not only be able to learn in their school environment, but for them to live into their brilliance. You know that the NEA is very diverse. We have people from all over the country, different geographies, different ethnicities, different genders, different backgrounds, and different political ideologies. It is part of what makes us strong. It's part of what makes America strong. And I talk about that all the time, that our diversity is our strength. It's what makes us unique. And NEA, as the largest labor union in this country, has that uniqueness that we have members in every single congressional district. One in every 100 NEA members, NEA members, one in every 100 Americans is an NEA member, which gives us the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with our family, the people who we love and like and work with, or go to our church or synagogue or mosque, who shop with us. All of those people, we have an incredible amount of influence and power, potentially, if we use that. And with 3 million people, it is certainly expected that we would be this diverse group of professionals. But despite our various backgrounds and differences and beliefs and upbringing, all of that, this we agree on, that public education is where democracy begins. It's where it takes hold. It's where it is protected and strengthened. It is a system that nurtures the kind of critical thinking and collaborative problem solving, civic understanding that allow our democracy, any democracy, to flourish. And it's what we as educators focus on with our students, whether they're pre-K or whether they are in higher education. Shortly after Donald Trump became president, NEA hosted an emergency briefing to help members understand the impact that the administration's proposed policies at the time would have on our students and our schools, our colleagues, and our communities. At that time, when we gathered, one of the things that the members, educators who joined us on that call suggested to us is that we host a future event that actually focuses on engaging our Republican NEA members and NEA members also who are represented by Republican lawmakers at every level. So this gathering is actually as a result of the suggestions of our NEA members. So I want you to know that as you engage with us and you have ideas on how we can build our movement to promote and protect and strengthen public education, how we do that in a way that we leverage, honestly, and use the diversity of our membership. As increasing numbers of our NEA members have begun to use their voices, most especially in our voucher fight to protect public tax dollars from going to private schools and gutting our public schools of the resources and funding that they need, that we know as educators are harmful to our students and harmful to the system of public education. We could not be coming together at a more critical time. Republican elected officials in state legislatures nationwide also have shown that they understand that vouchers are harmful. Most recently in North Dakota, So they are standing with us, and they are voting against taking public funds out of public schools. And so that's why it is so important. And the suggestion made by so many of our members is what we're focused on this evening, because it is those conversations that we have with our fellow members and the broader community, especially those people who are in positions of power, to make sure that they are standing with us, with our students and with our educators, with our families and in communities, and they are joining our fight, our movement to promote public education as a common good, to protect it against assaults on our students' right to live and to learn and to grow and to thrive, and to strengthen public education, because we know our work is not yet done. This, of course, includes some of our most recent wins in Kentucky, which was amazing, and Nebraska and Colorado, and particularly in Kentucky, where Democratic voters and Republican voters, especially independent voters, all of them said no to vouchers, because public education is a bipartisan issue, and having the voice of our Republican members is absolutely critical to building that movement. So I wanted you to know where this came from. It came from you. And I want you to know how important you are to all of our students, regardless of where you live. Your voice and your influence and your ability to tell your real stories about real students, your power to advocate and organize and mobilize for those students and for our educators, and to join us in amplifying your voices with others, joining us on the front lines to protect our students and our democracy. So with that, I want to turn this over to our moderators for tonight, Ben Grigsby and David Kinsella, who you already heard from. They are co-chairs of our NEA Republican Caucus. David, Ben?
Yeah, look, thank you, President Pringle. I appreciate your comments, and they're well taken. One of the things I was going to point out as a little introduction, though, President Eisenhower, many years ago, he basically said education is really our bread and butter. And it's really in terms of citizenship. So he made that a priority, especially in the, 1958. He had basically was requesting that Congress make that a priority. So even back as far as 58, you had an expansion in terms of what the government should be doing in terms of public education, in terms of it being a national security priority, to have an educated citizenship that can do all the things that we're expected to do. But anyway, I want to start this by, I want to introduce some of the people that we're going to hear from tonight. We have a distinguished panelist. So let me start with the president, basically, of the Texas State Teachers Association. That would be Ovidia Molina. And of course, she's a great story. She is an immigrant from El Salvador. She moved to Houston at the age of 7. She attended public schools in Houston, of course, and Fort Bend ISD. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree in interdisciplinary studies from the University of Houston. She taught middle school in the Houston area, where she began the 8th grade U.S. history teacher. And then she became an ESL teacher who taught language arts, literature, and U.S. history to immigrant children whose experiences she understood, of course, firsthand. Ovidia was elected, of course, second term as the president of the TSTA in 2023, having been first elected in 2020, at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. She previously served 6 years as the TSTA vice president. And then, of course, she served as several region and local elected positions as well. TSTA is affiliated, of course, with the National Education Association. As president, she travels frequently throughout Texas, developing education leaders, working with aspiring teachers, working to improve Texas's public schools for students, educators, and the communities they represent. Her daughter, Karlyn, and her son, Tristan, are public school graduates and are two of the many reasons that Avidia is passionate about advancing social justice causes and is dedicated to ensuring that all students have access to an equitable, quality public education that will open the doors to bright, successful futures for them. And now I want to introduce another one of our panelists. You can see her on, this is Peggy Hoy. She's an organizer from the Idaho Education Association, of course, an NEA board member. Peggy Hoy is a 35-year veteran educator in Twin Falls, Idaho, and a committed advocate for public education. She currently serves as a full-time release organizer and with the Idaho Education Association and represents Idaho on the NEA Board of Directors, where she brings a strong grassroots perspective to national education policy. Peggy is the past president of her local association, of course, a seasoned lead negotiator and co-chair of Idaho's statewide government relations and political action committee. She has worked extensively on education policy and school funding and collaborates closely with the Idaho State Department of Education and state legislators to ensure educators' voices are the center of education policy making. Now let me introduce Peter Oppenheim. He is the principal of Todd Strategy Group. Peter Oppenheim joined Todd Strategy Group in September 2024 as a principal with extensive expertise in helping clients with interests and goals in the education, workforce, labor, and health policy areas. Prior to joining, Peter was both the general counsel and education policy director for nearly 8 years on the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, serving and advising both Chairman Lamar Alexander, of course, the former senator from Tennessee, and ranking member Richard Burr, Republican from North Carolina, on legal and policy matters within the committee's broad jurisdiction. Peter has an impeccable reputation for bipartisanship, strong relationships, and a track record working across the aisle to pass significant pieces of legislation. Among other achievements, he has helped has been the lead negotiator, basically resulting in the creation and enactment of nearly $31 billion in education stabilization fund under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, and was integral to drafting, negotiating, and ultimately advancing Every Student Succeeds Act, Bipartisan Student Loan Certainty Act of 2013, also the Child Care and Development Block Grant of 2014, and of course the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. In addition, he has worked with Congress. In 2017, Peter was nominated by the president and unanimously confirmed by the Senate as the Assistant Secretary for Legislation, Congressional Affairs in the U.S. Department of Education, where he served as the principal advisor to the Secretary of Education on the department's legislative activities and relations with the U.S. Congress. He holds a BA from Colby College, and he has a degree from the American University nearby, in Washington, D.C., in the College of Law. So we've got a very distinguished panelist tonight. So we're looking forward to hearing from them. And I would like to start now with some opening remarks. We can start with Avidia. She wants to introduce herself and have some opening remarks.
I appreciate that. Thank you, David. You heard about me already, so I will keep it short. As you heard, my children and I attended public schools in Texas. I became a middle school teacher because I love and value education. I've seen the promise that our public schools have for their students from many different angles. I continue to believe that our public schools play a very important role, not just for our students, but for the adults that surround them and the communities that support them. Texas has been a red state for decades. And TSDA has been advocating for a quality public school for every child, which includes advocating for educators that help ensure that that happens for that time and before. We do, and we will endorse candidates that are pro-public education. That's what we do here in Texas to ensure that we are always speaking about what is best for our students in our communities. I truly believe that supporting and strengthening our schools takes all of us. And so I thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce Peggy Hoy. I'd like to hear from her. She is coming to us from Idaho.
Thank you so much, David. And as was said in my introduction, I am a 3-decade veteran teacher in the state of Idaho. And since I began my teaching career, Idaho has a steep history of a Republican legislature, and that's the norm. And so what I've learned is that when it comes to advocating for students and for public schools, it's not about the party labels, it's about what's doing right. And so whether I'm sitting in a school board meeting, whether I'm walking the halls of the Capitol, or I'm telling stories with members of Congress, what really keeps me going is that I know that if educators don't speak up, others will. And when they speak up, they tell the wrong story about our students, our schools, and our communities. And I've seen firsthand how federal dollars sustain our schools, how voucher schemes threaten to hollow out our local institutions, and how the attacks on public education are becoming more coordinated and more dangerous. But I also know that when we build unexpected allies, when educators of all political stripes speak up with a united voice, we can cut through the noise and we can protect what matters most, our students, our communities, and our futures. So I'm honored to be here tonight. I'm proud to be part of this conversation. I believe now more than ever, educators, especially those that have credibility across party lines, must step into the arena, not just to push back, but to lead.
Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate that. Now I'd like to let's give Peter Oppenheim a chance to do some opening remarks. Is Peter there? If we don't have Peter, we'll just go. We're going to go
Do you
to
have
the.
me now?
Oh, yes, there you are, Peter. There you are.
For that.
You're perfect. You're good.
I apologize. Thank you so much, David, for that introduction. And Becky, thanks so much for those opening remarks. You really hit on so many themes that I think are integral to helping to frame this conversation. I have a long history working with the NEA. My perspective is really from the federal level, to be honest with you. I was never a teacher, never been an educator, never worked in the school, never worked at the district or state level. My whole experience has been at the legal and federal level. But through working with NEA, meeting with NEA for so many years, hearing from educators, particularly working in the Tennessee delegation and meeting with the TEA regularly, that helped inform my work and my work on behalf of Lamar Alexander, on behalf of the Health Committee. We weren't always on the same side of issues, but I was always able to have frank and honest communications with NEA. One of the most important parts of working across party lines in Washington is understanding what, I don't like to use the term opponents, but folks on the other side of the aisle, what do they believe in? What do they think? What is motivating them? What are they trying to achieve? Because oftentimes there's more alignment than you think in those goals. We all, when we were negotiating bills across the aisle, everyone wanted to help children. Everyone wanted to help educators. We oftentimes had different ideas about how to do.
Peter, I think you froze up.
Yeah, he did. There he is. He's back.
Am I back out? Sorry. I sincerely apologize. The most rewarding experience working with NEA, and I think the greatest example of bipartisanship in my career was the negotiation and enactment of the Every Student Succeeds Act. Nobody thought we could get it done, but because of the leadership of Lamar Alexander and the partnership really that we had with NEA and teachers, we were able to bridge a wide bipartisan gulf in ending high stakes tests, ending high stakes accountability systems, and rolling back the federal role to really give decisions back to states and local communities and educators at the local level. And I think that is a great example of how hopefully Republicans and Democrats can come together again on education and find common ground. I just want to say I remember my first time meeting with NEA Republicans from Tennessee. They came up to give Lamar an award, and I still have the button in my office. Unfortunately, I'm not in my office right now. Republicans love public education. I keep that proudly on my desk and wear that very proudly.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So we have a few questions here. Eben and I are going to ask one. I'm going to start with question one. This is going to be for the entire panel. All three of you can answer this. So for the first question, what has motivated you in spaces that make it difficult to advocate for public education to continue your advocacy efforts and impact change? So you're looking at things from your sphere of influence, whether it's local, state, or federal. So anybody can chime in from the panel.
I'm happy to jump in on the federal level. I mean, the things I always tried to keep in mind in all issues affecting public education is 90% of children go to public schools. So every decision you make affecting education affects the vast majority of children in our country. And I remember Lamar Alexander always reminding us, and I think this was a quote, not quote directly from Al Shanker, that the purpose of public education is to teach children how to be an Americans, to teach children from immigrants from all around the world that come to this country, from all walks of life in this country, from rural, from urban, from every ethnic and religious background, how to come together and what the purpose of this country is and what our common values are. And that's also always something I try and keep in mind.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Ovidia wanted to say.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just wanted to Peter, what you said earlier about how, many times why we do things may seem different, but they're not. That is exactly it. We want to ensure, for me, it's ensuring that the over 5 million students that go to our public schools in Texas have a bright future. And so it's that same goal of wanting to make a brighter future for all. Our students are the future, and they need us to do everything we can to ensure that they have a high quality public education with all of the resources they need to ensure a bright future. And when we talk about a bright future for our students, that is the future of my state, your state, in our country. And so it is a similar need and want for us to want to make sure that our public schools thrive.
Thank you. You want to add anything, Peggy?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add is really when I think of what motivates me, it's really the educators, the students, the families that I've worked with, and telling their stories. And that helps me have those conversations with people that are hearing from the anti stories. They need to hear from us as educators. And I think when we tell those stories, they really do cut through the politics, and they just remind all of our decision makers that there's real human faces attached to those stories, and those human faces are impacted by the decisions that they make. So I think that's really what motivates me, is the opportunity to share my stories, my teacher stories, my student stories, and my family stories.
Thank you, Peggy. Now I'm going to hand it over to Eben. He's got another question for the panelists.
All right. Might as well buckle your seatbelts here. We know the impact for federal dollars have in public schools in their communities. How do threats to these dollars play out in local areas? And we got to think about cuts to Medicaid, school meals, Title I, and so forth in this case.
I can jump in. So Idaho we have 117 school districts in our state, and 100 of them are rural. And so when I think of federal dollars, our rural communities they don't just get the money. It's necessary. They don't have tax bases to run levies. They don't have a lot of PTAs to help with other things that teachers may need. And so the federal dollars are essential. So when we have cuts to Medicaid, we have fewer health supports. When we have those are the things that really hurt us. And when I talk about the Medicaid, like, people don't think about the loss of reimbursement for the support that we're giving our students that qualify for under their Medicaid program. I think also cuts to meals really hit our students hard in our rural areas. And so when I think of federal dollars, I think the need is so great in our state because so much of our state is rural and don't have the tax base, and we rely on those federal dollars.
Okay.
If I can add to that, I think, Peggy, you hit on some points that relate to this in your earlier comments, that these are human faces. I mean, this is what I try to articulate when I meet with Republican staff and Republican lawmakers on a lot of these issues. You know, these children are affected also by decisions that other people make. And they can't succeed in school if their parents are having health issues and cannot afford to get care. They can't focus in school if they can't afford breakfast or lunch. Or dinner in many cases. So that cuts to these programs just don't affect the bottom line. They affect the real human beings and the children that are the downstream impacted directly by those.
If I may add, and Peter, I think I'm gonna try to talk to you later because we just yes. What I usually tell people when I start the conversation is that everything that happens to our students outside of our classrooms in our schools follows them into our schools. And so if they're not getting the needs met because their families can't afford it, then they're not able to learn as well. And so when we want to make sure that we are supporting our students in school, that doesn't just mean in the school building. And so programs that are being cut and taken away are not just programs that are outside of the school. They're coming in with our kids and they're making it hard for them to learn and making it to where our schools are no longer places that can be these safe spaces for them to get everything that they need. And unfortunately, as more and more cuts happen at the federal level and at the state level, our schools have to do more. Unfortunately, we are not getting more to do it. And so our children are the ones, as you both mentioned, that are going to be paying the price for adult decisions that they had nothing to do with.
Okay, I think we're ready for our next question. I was just going to add, when you guys are talking about federal funding, of course, Medicaid funding accounts for $7.5 billion going out to our schools annually. So if we're cutting Medicaid in any way, the localities, they're going to have to step up and make up for the lost funds. So that could present a lot of problems, whether you're a Republican leader, Democrat leader, how are we going to make up for lost funding? So these are important considerations. But let's look at
can I add one point, David? I think that's an important point in some of these funding fights, not just Medicaid, but Medicare. We've seen over the past several decades, pretty much since the 70s, with the increased burden that the federal government has placed on states, in particularly to fund Medicare. States have made up for that by increasing tuition rates and higher education costs, because that's a place where they can very easily sort of turn up the dial without affecting state constitutional rights and roads and prisons and all that sort of stuff. There's now increasing pressure from the federal government, and we might likely see this out of the next budget reconciliation bill, to cut the ability of particularly public higher education systems from increasing tuition rates, because they're going to be penalized. That's going to put more and more pressure potentially on public state K-12 funding. So that's just something to keep on your radar.
Absolutely. Now, the third question here, from your perspective, what strategies and partnerships have worked best to build bipartisanship, basically public education coalitions of state legislators? That's from your perspective, the three panelists with your experience.
I'll start. A lot of what Becky said early about how we communicate with the community and all of the different places that we have connections has to come into play when we're talking about our schools and what we need our states to do and the people that are elected. We have to share our stories, and we have to be able to have, as we're having here, conversations about why it is that we're doing this and why it is important, putting a face to the story and putting a real human into the actions that our representatives are taking and the impacts of it. And so having the stories, sharing the stories, but also asking the people that you talk to in your communities, at the grocery stores, in your places of worship, in your clubs, sororities, fraternities, all the different places that you're connected, to ensuring that they have that message that they can take and share with other people as well. So not just like the big coalitions where our locals are connected to groups that are also fighting for it, but people to people, and then the buildings. In Texas, we have Texas pastors for Texas students, right? And so we have different groups that value our public schools and will be there to fight for our students and public education. And so we've made more of a stronger relationships with those groups because we're working on the same issue, and therefore it always works better when more people are doing the work.
Absolutely. So Peggy, do you have anything to add on that about what, from an Idaho perspective?
I think what really works well in Idaho is starting with relationships. And that's something that I worked really hard and have, really trained our members to do. Before you can even start talking about policy or how they're going to vote, you have to talk about the people. So I think a strategy that's worked well for us is that inviting the legislators, policymakers into the schools, into the classrooms, so they can see policy conversation, it becomes personal. I think also it's really important that we frame the conversations that we have around shared community values. And so making sure that they really understand that it doesn't matter what the zip code is of the child, that they all deserve the same kind of education. And so having those conversations about like different communities and values within those communities is really important. And then really finding, what I have found is that some of the people that don't agree with us on a lot of things, we can find common ground when they hear a student story. And so I think that when policymakers see the direct impact of their investments and they see what can happen, and when they can see that the students' lives are changed because of the decisions that they make, that's when we start really building those bipartisan relationships, and that helps us really move what we need to be moved forward.
Very well put. Yeah, I mean, that's a Republican value as much as any value. The people is what everybody loves, these students, and we all want them to be successful. And I think that's a good point. Now I'm going to turn the next question over to my colleague, Eban.
All right, question number 4. What steps can we take to elect pro-public education Republicans nationwide? Maybe any one of you could start. I see Peter's light just came up.
Sure, I can jump in. I mean, I think you need to cultivate these members. I mean, at the local level, at the grassroots level, I mean, there's a lot of work done by right-wing advocacy groups to find the most conservative, the most right-wing folks in state legislatures in particular to run. We need to find Republican educators to run for from my perspective, for federal office, and get them out there and make that argument to the public, that public education is important, because I think that resonates. Like 90% of kids go to public school. Their parents send them to public school. My old boss used to say that even if you have school choice in an area, most parents are still going to choose public school. That's one of the many big arguments for not draining resources from those public schools, because we're draining resources while still trying to serve more, the same amount of more students, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. But I really think it's engaging at the grassroots level. I think those communication points that both my colleagues made earlier are critically important, but you really got to engage at the local level, not at the federal level, to get these folks into office.
Yeah, and
Peggy?
I would just like to add, I think another thing that we need to do is, I think it's really important to create a space for those candidates to be able to speak about their support for public education and not be afraid, because that's something that has taken a long time to cultivate here. We see that when those Republican lawmakers do take those courageous stands, sometimes they can feel isolated because they get attacked. So I think we need to really create a safe space and remind people that it's about education. It's not about Democrat or Republican. And then I think also we have to continue to build coalitions with our organizations in our communities, Chamber of Commerce, our faith communities, places where these conversations can happen in trusted settings first, and then that will help build up their courage to speak boldly about public education and sharing those values.
I think it is important to have that communication and to also help educators see that we are the experts when it comes to public education, and why not have the run, and put your name in for the program, see educators run, find out how you can become that candidate, and talking to other people who are maybe you can't do it right now, but you have a candidate that will be able and willing to stand up for public education, and talk to them about it. So becoming a candidate yourself, or finding a candidate that will that shares those values and will be able to speak up for our students is essential. Ensuring that we don't just wait to see who is going to do it, but actually finding who will do it.
And I want to just add one thing that I forgot to say, if it's okay that I just add this really quick. I think we also need to model bipartisan respect. And what I mean by that is that when you have a Republican that makes a good vote or stands up for education, we need to recognize them. I think that that's really important. And if it's a Democrat, same thing. But we need to make sure that we're modeling bipartisan support for all of our elected officials that support public ed.
I want to add just one more thing, and I know this is my moderator hat, but also as an educator, I think it's also essential if we want pro-public education, public educators to be in this situation as Republicans. You need to join your state parties, join your county parties, because that's the only way you're going to get impact as well, especially if you're a part of the grassroots. I'll make it a very big deal about being a part of my county and my state party, because you have the ear of those politicians to be able to say, maybe we need to focus on public education along with other issues, and we might not be 100% on it, but knowing that they know that there are people in that room who are going to pay attention to them and ask those integral questions about education, especially public education, is essential, to make sure that they know what's up.
Excellent.
Sorry, off my soapbox.
Now, here is a topic that has been mentioned already tonight, but I'm going to mention it one more time here. How will voucher laws, such as the one signed in Texas, impact public education? And how can we convey the challenges of school choice, especially in rural communities across the United States?
I think it was mentioned that, you know, as vouchers come into Texas, we're going to see some loss in enrollment for public schools, but we're also going to see a bounce back. We're also going to see the majority of the students in Texas still going to our public schools, and therefore we are still going to need to ensure that our public schools are being funded and are being supported, and so ensuring that the message isn't especially for our kids, that we're not sort of giving up on their education, that we're still there funding or fighting for funding and supporting them, I think is very essential. Texans did not want vouchers, fought vouchers, and it was our rural Republicans who held it off for so long. And so, you know, as a Texan, it is the Republicans who helped for it to take this long and have our governor fight that hard to get it done. They haven't gone away. And so the members and the community members that we have here in Texas are still asking for their representatives to truly represent them, and asking for support for our public schools. And so ensuring that we keep the pressure was going to be essential as we continue.
Thank you. You want to add anything? Oh yeah, Peggy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just jump in, like, because Idaho also passed a voucher law this year after 6 years of fighting and pushing back and being able to kill it. We weren't able to do that this year. And so I think, you know, we kind of what Avidia said, our kids are going to show up. They're going to be coming to public schools. First of all, as I said in my opening, we have 100 rural districts in our state, and there's no option for them. There's no private school option for those kids. And so we're still going to need to support them. And so I think, you know, if you look at the question, it's, you know, how will it affect our public education? Well, currently it's, in my opinion, and this is what we're really seeing, is that it's creating a two-tiered system. And that really causes problems, because the teachers or the students that need the most support, like our special needs students, our English learners, our poverty students, they will be left behind in underfunded schools. And so if we don't have the funding that we need, and the funding is starting to get siphoned away for vouchers schemes, for tax credits, whatever you want to call it, it's going to hurt our most vulnerable students. And so that's really how it's affecting us. And we need to get that message made loud and clear, so that the $50 million cap that was put on the Idaho voucher system this year does not get expanded in the future. And hopefully we'll be able to win back some of our more moderate seats in the next primary, and we can reverse this piece of legislation.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to hand it up. In interest of time, Eben, I'm going to let you take the next question, or ask them.
Certainly. What is the best way for educators to stay on top of proposed education-related measures and legislation at the local, state, and federal levels?
I'll jump in first on this one. I think we just have to, they have to be involved, they have to be engaged. So I want to share just a really quick thing that we do in Idaho that's been, and I'm sure they do it in other states, but what's very successful for us is we have a lobby day where we bring in hundreds of educators across the state. We do it on Martin Luther King Day, because most of our students, our teachers don't have to get substitutes that day. And we bring them in, we do a training the night before. We have a dinner where we invite education-friendly legislators to come to that dinner. And at that time, you can just have like natural conversations at the tables. And then we give them a real, our talking points of what our priorities are for that session. And then the next day, we help them get appointments set up the day before, or, you know, within the month before. And so those people are meeting with their legislators that are in their district, and we get great feedback. And what I've learned is that by giving them the tools and the talking points and then getting them engaged means that they're not afraid to go in and have those conversations, even with our legislators that are not friendly. because we're giving them the tools. So we have to provide our educators with tools, with talking points, with statistics, and with the and space. We have to give them the space to have the conversation.
For us in Texas, we want to make sure that not just our members are engaged and have the information. We also want to make sure that our community does. So, especially during a legislative session, they can sign up for briefings to know what education issues are going on at the Capitol, and so that they stay informed on those. And then they can also act on alerts when we need them to be there and to stand up and speak out for our public schools. Aside from that, the actions that are happening that are more right wing and less, Republicans who value our public schools are starting to see some counter actions. We're starting to win at the local level our school board races more, and so we're seeing that people are saying, you know what, that's a step too far, and they are standing up for our public schools. And so ensuring that the communication continues, that we have those spaces, that we reach out, that we share the stories, and then we ask people to continue to stay engaged. Elections are one thing, but what happens after the elections is the thing that impacts our students and our communities the most. And so we cannot just say, oh, okay, a person who is not for our schools has won, we can't do anything about it. That's when we put the pressure of our community to remind them that they are still representing us and showing up, as Peggy said, lobbying, talking to them when they're back in their home districts, to remind them that we are living and we are voting pro public education. Again, doesn't matter what letter is in front of your name, that we want to support our public schools and we need you to do it, or we're going to find someone that will.
Those are great points. I mean, at the federal level, it's difficult, and staying informed and staying on top of what's happening and staying ahead of what's happening. I mean, it's what I do for a living, and it's not easy. I would say read as much as you can. I won't tip the scale on which sources of information are better than others, because I think there's so much out there that you really need to get a diverse set of opinions of news coverage and whatnot. I would say every one of your members of Congress has a newsletter that you can subscribe to. They're doing they're supposed to be doing town halls in their districts. I know there's been a little bit of a slowdown of Republican town halls because they're afraid of hearing from a lot of their constituents. But hopefully those will pick up again. Engage as much as possible. The committees that handle education in Congress have newsletters as well, so you can hear about when they're putting forth legislation. You can get summaries of those bills and all that sort of stuff. But I think the NEA is a great resource for you as well, with their legislative summaries, their action items, summarizing and dissecting how those policies are going to impact educators and students around the country. That is a great resource as well.
Excellent. I'm going to go, if it's all right with you, Eben, I'm going to go to the next question, another timely question. Why is it important now more than ever for educators to speak up on behalf of public education, regardless of party affiliation?
I mean, if I could just jump in there, we're in a really unique political environment right now. Obviously, the level of vitriol, particularly in Washington, is at an all-time high. The partisanship is sharply divided, but it's also, there's been sort of the traditional political structures have completely broken down. What is a Republican today versus what was a Republican 10 years ago has completely changed. I mean, there's weird convergences of constituencies, and I talk about this particularly in trying to engage with the Trump administration. They're not guided by any specific ideological platform. They're certainly not liberal. They're not really conservative. They're really populist. that presents opportunity, but it also represents a grave danger that the mob is going to decide the future of major issues such as public education. So if folks don't speak out, it's the loudest voices in the room that are going to win. And who, you know, and it's going to decide which way the wind goes. So if folks don't speak out, and particularly on the importance of public education, they're not going to be heard, and policies aren't going to reflect what you all want. So I think now is more critical than ever for folks to speak up, for educators to speak up, and parents to speak up.
Absolutely. Want to add anything, Peggy?
Only thing I was just going to say is, you know, I mean, I really agree with what Peter said. The attacks that are coming, they're coordinated, they're funded, they're showing up everywhere, every direction. They're in every political conversation, and and a lot of what they're saying, it's a false narrative. So if educators don't step up, and if educators don't tell their stories, others are going to continue to tell the wrong stories. So I think it's more important now than ever for educators to lead these conversations and not shy away from them. When they see something where education is under attack, they need to step up and they need to say, this is the truth. This is really our reality. It doesn't matter what our political beliefs are. We have to be united in protecting, the one institution, public education, that serves all kids. And that's what keeps our community strong.
Absolutely.
I agree. Yes, thank you. I agree with both of them. And the thing that, speaking out it's sometimes scary. Especially when you're getting the attacks, but ensuring that you are still communicating. If you don't want to call, email. If you can't email or visit, find a way to still tell your story. But then also find other people that will be there when you tell your story, so that you're not alone. And then they will find more people, and so that we continue to grow in the people that are saying education, public education needs to be important to you because it's important to us. And so we need to ensure that they do not forget that public education is essential, important to many. Again, we're speaking on this panel. It doesn't matter what letter is in your name. If you're a rep, we believe and we value public education, and there are many more of us than the loud voices that we continue to hear. Unfortunately, they've made it their mission to be loud and be in places where we are not, and so we need to be in those places, and we need to be vocal about who we truly are as educators in sharing the stories, not just our stories, but as Peggy's mentioned, stories of our students and their families, and what education truly is, and not what they say it is.
Point well taken. Okay, Eben, I'm gonna let you get the final question.
Last, but certainly not least. Now, we know that our Republican members have a deeply credible voice when it comes to advocating for public education with Republican elected officials. For Republican members to listen tonight who don't know how to get started, how can they begin to more deeply engage in their state or local affiliates to make sure their voices are heard?
You need to start by showing up, like attend meetings, ask questions, volunteer for committees where your passion will come through. Republican educators can really add balance. We've found that in Idaho. It helps us with our credibility when we sit down and we have those conversations. We need to, if you know others that are Republicans that want to get involved, reach out to them, get them to these meetings. I think sometimes it's as simple as setting up like one-on-one conversations with local representatives or local school board members, just to start that conversation. And then don't underestimate the power of inviting your Republican colleagues who aren't involved into the conversations that you're already having. Your voice, your story, and your relationships are incredibly powerful tools. So use them as educators.
I think Peggy said it beautifully. I wholeheartedly agree. Just creating the space and ensuring that if you are engaged because you're here, get somebody else and let them know that the space is here.
I can add one piece there. If Peter doesn't have anything, I will add one thing. Okay. If you live in a state like mine, whether it's a purple state, a red state, or a blue state, if especially the reds and the blue, I mean purples, if you're in a state that's like right to work, which usually means it ain't right to work, you better make sure if you're able, get every member who is not. If they're an educator in your district and they are not a member in the union, because you do have to, because of in Wisconsin, we have Act 10, you have to now pay into it. You have to do it yourself. This is when you have to say, hey, this is a prospective member, potential member, because the bottom line is the issues that are facing educators, they don't care what party you're a member of, because it's going to affect everyone when it comes to our students, when it comes to our communities. And understand, we need all hands on deck at this point. So I just want to put that out there with my own 2 cents as moderator, but also just letting you know, the only way they know that our state and local affiliates know that they're Republican educators, that we need to also be members of our locals and state affiliates as well. And with that being said, I'd like to have some closing remarks from President Pringle.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you so much. And Ben, and I'm going to forgive you for the black and gold you had up at there at the beginning.
Don't hate.
I ain't gonna hate. My dad tried his best to raise me as a Steelers fan, and I even have a terrible towel. So, but the Philadelphia Eagles are the world champions. So I just needed to say, go Birds. Now, with that aside, not a Republican or Democratic issue. Thank you so much for moderating this powerful panel. I cannot thank you enough, President Molina, for taking time to talk about what you're doing there in Texas and the impact that lifting up your voice makes. Peggy, obviously from Idaho, for you to share with our Republican colleagues how you have successfully lifted up your voice and enlisted others to do the same, encourages folks around the power that they have and have maybe not yet tapped into. So thank you. And Peter, thank you for the long-term relationship that the NEA has had. I appreciate sharing with the folks who have joined us that history goes back a long time, because NEA has a long history of being bipartisan and voting for, recommending and working with those elected leaders at every level who are pro-public education, pro-student, pro-working families, pro-union, that understand that public education is a common good and it is the foundation of our democracy. So thank you for your long-term partnership, and certainly right now, we need that to continue. No question. So thank you for joining us. Peter said something that I want to emphasize. Peter, I appreciate you saying or encouraging folks to read, because as educators, that's a core value for us on continuous learning. And so I want to encourage that, lift that up as something I need to follow up on. And we know that in our battle to protect and promote and strengthen public education, that we have to have a strategy to do that includes education and includes communication, which all of our panelists talked about. It includes litigation, which the NEA has taken on when they have threatened threatened harm to our students or our educators. It includes organizing and includes electing, like I said, those people who will work with us and fight for our kids' right to learn, for educators' right to teach, for all the right to have access to a universal free public education. So I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to go to nea.org/protect, where you will find more information about how you can get involved. We have a QR code that you can scan so you can take action and you can learn about the issues that are impacting our students and educators and communities across the country. And as we end this time together, let me end the way I started, just by thanking you for showing up. Thank you for the work that so many of you have already done. Thank you for understanding that our students, our babies, they are depending on us to be worthy of them. Thank you so very much, and have a great rest of your evening. Good night.
Hang on.
Good night, Madam President. Thank you.
Hang on.
Good night. Have a good evening, Madam President.
Okay, we're done. We're done. That was a pretty lackluster call, if I'm honest about it. Like, I think the best part of that call was when they did what we call the Karlyn disclaimer at the beginning of the call. Because, listen, we've been watching quite a few National Education Association calls lately, and I've never seen them do the Karlyn disclaimer at the beginning of the call. That's something new. They hadn't done that before. And so I will also say that I've seen Becky Pringle specifically on a call a couple weeks ago. And Becky Pringle was significantly less animated tonight. She seemed to choose her words a lot more carefully tonight than she did on the call a couple weeks ago, didn't she? And I don't know, maybe it had something to do with the fact that the Chicago Teachers Union vice president, on a call that the National Education Association hosted, told teachers to go out and protest to shut shit down and abolish the Constitution and overthrow democracy. Maybe that could have had something to do with it. Maybe Becky has caught on that we're recording every single thing they say and do. And I don't give a flying fuck if the National Education Association puts it at the beginning of one of their organizing meetings. You are not allowed to video us. I'm sorry. You are a public teachers union. You work for us. Everything you do is in the public interest. I will record your public organizing calls if I damn well feel like it, because guess what? You put these calls out into the public for anyone to sign up for, and therefore they are public calls, and you are a public teachers union, and I will record you for the public interest as an independent journalist if I damn well fucking feel like it. They can get fucked. If they think putting a disclaimer at the beginning of their thing is going to prevent me from recording them, do you want to try me? Because do you guys know? Oh, breaking news update. Did you guys know? Do you guys remember 10 days ago when the Institute for Research on Male Supremacism threatened to sue me and used that to contact Substack, to force Substack to take down the recordings of their conference? Do you guys remember when that happened? And Substack responded to the Institute for Research on Male Supremacism, and they said, you have 10 days to provide us with evidence that you are actually suing her. Guess what? I just got an email from Substack the other day. Guess what happened? There was no evidence that they were going to sue me, because they were never going to sue me. It was all just weaponizing the DMCA process to prevent recordings from their nonprofit, publicly funded by the University of California, Berkeley conference. It was just trying to prevent that I've called their fucking bluff. They're not going to sue me, and all the content's going back up, and we're going to start releasing the clips, and I'm going to be even a bigger bitch about this than I was going to be in the first place, because I was thinking about releasing clips while we were waiting for this, and I was like, this is going to be double the work. I'm just going to wait, because I knew they weren't going to sue me. And so now I'm going to be even a bigger cunt to you guys, since you weaponized the DMCA process on my platform to prevent me from reporting on your stuff. There is no universe in which the organizations that I infiltrate are ever going to sue me. Do you want to know why? Because if they did, I would get access to their internal files through the process of discovery, and God knows they don't want that. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. They can get fucked. I will follow you. You want to make sure that I'm going to record your organization in every single call I can from now on. Put a disclaimer at the beginning of your call saying you are not allowed to record this without our explicit permission. Public School Teachers Union. Get fucked. Yeah. They aren't used to people watching and then having thousands of people listening to what they say, or they aren't used to people telling them no. They aren't used to people telling them no. You are using public dollars to push crazy bullshit, and I don't think that we need to deal with that anymore. And I'm going to give as much stuff to the Trump administration as I possibly can because I want the teachers' unions abolished. There should be no teachers' unions. The teachers are public employees. They don't get to unionize to hold everything fucking hostage. Sorry. No. If you want to unionize, go work for a private company and go join that union if you want to. But I don't even think those unions should exist. Quite frankly, if I had my way, Trump would be writing an executive order to abolish all unions everywhere because all unions are socialist. So that was really the most exciting thing that happened on the call was they had the Karlyn disclaimer at the very beginning. But so there wasn't really a ton of information came out. Maybe someone told them, hey, you might be being streamed on the internet right now, so maybe don't say any crazy shit today. That's all entirely possible. That's the chance we always take. But what I will say is this. I am getting really sick and tired of hearing from conservatives. This doesn't happen in red states. This doesn't happen in red schools. Our school is in a red state. Our school is in a red city. This doesn't happen here. It's only in blue states. It's only in blue cities. If you guys are going to send your kids to public school, that's your business. It's a horrible decision. It will permanently scar your children for life. They will graduate not even knowing how to read. But that's your business. If you want your kids to be dumb by going to public school, you do you. But if you seriously think that this stuff is not happening in red states, in red districts, in red cities, in red schools, whatever, you are out of your mind insane. If you're going to send your kids to public school, at least be honest about what you're sending them into. Because 90% of the teachers are leftists. The vast majority of teachers went through teacher education training programs that were completely co-opted by the left literally decades ago. The teachers are so indoctrinated. They are so corrupted that they don't even know there's any other way to teach other than what they learned in the School of Education, which was all indoctrinated with leftism a long time ago. The public teaching pool is completely unfixable. We are never going to solve this problem. It is never going to happen in our lifetime. The only way to solve the problem of education and indoctrination in education is to burn down public education, defund everything, privatize everything, give the families their money back that they're paying in their taxes, and allow them to work in their communities to build private educational options. This happens in New Hampshire all the time, where parents will take the school choice money and then they get together and they pool it all together. And you know what they do? They hire a private tutor and rent out a little schoolhouse that they send all of their kids to with the private tutor that they've hired by pooling the school choice money together. And their kids get a much better education. And it's not really functionally any different than sending them to school, except you're sending them to someone that you get to tell what they teach and what they don't teach. You get direct access to everything, and you get to make sure your kids are actually learning how to effing read. I know that people don't want to homeschool their kids. I really get that people don't want to homeschool their kids. I'm in the middle of a rant right now. I don't know where this came on, but I'm going with it, okay? I know that people are afraid to homeschool their kids. They think it's going to be too much problem. They think it's going to be too difficult, whatever. But do you understand that public school is going to permanently corrupt your children and there's nothing you can do about it? There's literally nothing you can do about it. The entire system is set up against you. And so, I don't know, man. I think that I don't have kids personally because I like my money and I like my freedom, and kids drive me insane, and please keep your kids away from me, like, for real. I don't want to be around your kids. I don't want to, like, if we can keep a perimeter of at least 10 feet between me and children at all times, I think that would be pretty great. I don't even want to hold babies or nothing like that. Like, okay, I've made my point. Keep your kids away from me. I don't like kids. I don't have kids. But if I did have kids, I sure as shit wouldn't be sending them to public schools, because I would take responsibility for making sure my kids aren't permanently fucked up by a system that I sent them into for 8 hours a day for the first 13 years of their educational experience. It just seems like a really effing bad idea to me. And people need to understand that the public schools today are not what they were when you were in school. It is not the same thing. Anyway. So the teachers union doesn't want you seeing what they're talking about. They are absolutely doing this in red states, red cities. We know that now because half of that panel was from Texas. And I've been hearing from activists in Texas for years that Texas schools are completely corrupt and no one's talking about it because it's in a red state and the schools refuse to actually do anything about it. Like, I think schools across the state are corrupt. I don't believe that the state government's doing anything about it. I don't believe the state legislatures are doing anything about it. Like, Texas claims it bans CRT and queer theory and gender studies in the classroom, but it actually doesn't. Like, they don't enforce that. So I don't know, man. If you can't look at calls with the teachers unions where a Republican did, can we just reflect for a fact? There was a land blessing at the beginning of that call. I'm pretty sure the person who did the land blessing on the call was a Republican. Why the ever-loving F is a Republican doing a land blessing on any call? I'm pretty sure that there was one guy in there that was just talking about how it's just so offensive that education would be defunded. Why is he in the Republican Party? Everyone who is a Republican on that call should receive a letter from the Republican Party tomorrow kicking their asses out. They are working with the enemy. Like, no. You don't get to be a fake fucking Republican when we see you on the internet doing a land blessing, motherfucker. Have we taught you nothing? Anyway. Hey, do you guys want some breaking news? But now that we've concluded Spy Stream, but do you guys want some breaking drama news before we wrap up as my thank you for staying until the end of the call? Because I know that was a slog to get through. There was a lot of boring in that one. There really, really was. Do you guys want some breaking news updates? Because James Lindsay's daughter has been posting on Twitter. Or stepdaughter, rather. Stepdaughter, we have to be very clear. Stepdaughter. James Lindsay's stepdaughter has been posting on Twitter. So what happened is Psycho Frank McCormick kept posting about me. Psycho Frank McCormick is provably off his psychiatric meds. He's one of James Lindsay's attack dogs. He tweets about me and everyone else that James doesn't like literally all the fucking time. So Psycho Frank McCormick tweeted earlier today, Karlyn Borysenko's stalking and attempts to manipulate James Lindsay's daughter, he means stepdaughter, for personal info are repulsive. This isn't concern. It's calculated emotional exploitation, weaponizing his child, stepchild that he doesn't talk to at all, to harm her father, stepfather, is abuse. We must all call this out for what it is. Grooming. This is the crazy lie that James Lindsay and his friends have been pushing. They say I'm grooming his stepdaughter. His stepdaughter is almost 30 years old. His stepdaughter is about to turn 29. And they keep running around the internet saying, she's grooming her. She's grooming her. She's grooming her. I swear to God. And people actually believe them. I've actually been exchanging tweets with people who replied to Frank saying, someone replied to Frank saying, the FBI should look into me. And I replied to them and I was like, oh yeah, you want the FBI to police a conversation between two adults? And they were like, oh, I thought she was a minor. They're actually convincing people that James Lindsay's stepdaughter is a minor and that I'm grooming her when she's almost 29 years old. So this is actually really pissing her off, for the record. Like, and I've said this from the beginning. I'm not doing shit between James Lindsay and his stepdaughter. I don't ask her for information. I don't try to turn her against James. I've never done any of that. I just talked to her and offered her moral support. That was it. And so this is pissing her off because it is not me and my community. It is James who is taking a blowtorch to his relationship with his own stepdaughter live on Twitter. So she got really pissed off earlier today. And she said, Karlyn and I have only messaged one time since January. This man is so obsessed with me. What a creep. So this is James Lindsay's stepdaughter commenting on the situation. And I said, and I'm pretty sure I didn't ask you for any information about James or your family and didn't attack you like he claimed I would. And she said, you didn't ask me for anything. It baffles me they think they know our messages. The post you made before we talked reporting about my OnlyFans is the one they're talking about, but I don't take it personal because we didn't know each other yet. Patrick is who I was mad at. Yeah, that was the first time I tweeted about her before I actually started talking to her. So she's pretty pissed off about all of this. And people even are like, she's insane. And everyone's like not providing evidence, of course. And then she also tweeted this. And I want to be clear, I didn't put her up to this. She just posted like an hour ago. I'm not going to do the voice with her. People like Frank making unnecessary posts to cause drama is something that just pisses me off. And the amount of information I've not shared about my stepdad, because I've tried to be as civil as possible, is a lot. And if I keep seeing posts like this, I'm just going to share everything. And I just want it duly noted. I responded to her and I said, I just wanted to be on the record that this is your idea and not something I asked you to do, but I support it. Follow your bliss, because I didn't come up with this idea. She came up with this on her own. And she said, 100%, I'm so fed up. The lack of respect when it comes to his online friends and his lack of asking them to stop is unacceptable at this point. So it is now on the record that if James Lindsay's stepdaughter starts really spilling the tea, it's entirely James's fault, because James sent his friends to attack her and harass her, and he never told them to stop, and she's getting pissed off, and this has been going on for months. And I'll tell you, I know there's stuff that she hasn't even told me because she keeps hinting around about it, and I think that she wants to talk. And if James doesn't want her to spill the tea, maybe he should cut the bullshit and tell his friends to cut it out and actually maybe show her just a modicum of respect and decency, because James is the person that blowtorched the relationship with his own stepdaughter. I had nothing to do with it. She was pissed off. She released information. James could have reached out to her and didn't. I reached out to her and said, are you okay? Because she was getting dogpiled on the internet. And I don't want to let anyone go through that when they don't know what they've stepped into, because she didn't know what she stepped into at the time. And James didn't help her at all. And then she started talking to me and James kept getting more and more pissed off and posting publicly about it. And I've been saying the whole fucking time, James is the one causing the problem. Because that's what she says to me. James is the one causing the problem. James's friends acting like unhinged morons on the internet, constantly going after her because they're trying to get to me. So they're perfectly fine throwing his stepdaughter under the bus. They're the ones that are causing this, and James isn't telling them to stop. So if she starts spilling the tea, it is not my fault, and it is not something I caused. It's something that was caused by James. And now this is entirely 100% on the record, and everyone's seen it. Has she tweeted anything else in the last several minutes? Let's see. Nope. Seems like she's good. All right. So that's all. That's all. I think that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you for coming to Spy Stream. We will do public Spy Streams when I'm able to, but of course, Spy Stream is usually a supporter-only exclusive. You can support my work by heading over to my Substack. Bing! Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. And you guys make it possible for me to do what I do. I really appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow for Counter-Revolutionary Book Club at 5 p.m. There might be a drama stream tonight. There might be a drama stream tonight. I'm still deciding. We'll see. We'll see. So keep an eye out. You never know when I'll go live on the internet. But for right now, I'm taking my leave. Bye, guys. We'll see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Could you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.